In an era when people around the world are debating freedom, safety, and government power, one truth stands firm. Rights are only preserved if they're exercised, and rights abandoned are rarely restored.
Dan Was, author of Good Gun, Bad Guy,
Second Amendment advocate and author extraordinaire, Dan Was.
Good Gun, Bad Guy. Dan Was joins me now.
Dan Was is my guest, and he's here.
As Americans, we're heirs to a constitutional tradition unlike any other country. We place individual liberty at the center of our national identity. At the heart of that tradition stands the Second Amendment, a cornerstone of the Bill of Rights, securing not just the ability to own firearms, but the broader principle of self-governance. But as we look beyond our borders, a different pattern is evident. Nations that once embraced firearm ownership as a normal aspect of life, countries like the United Kingdom and Canada, for instance, have gradually imposed sweeping gun bans. For many citizens, these restrictions have led to limits of their speech, independence, and personal freedom. Now, their experiences force us to recognize that when governments restrict the means by which citizens protect themselves, they often reshape the meaning of freedom itself. The irony of this stolen freedom is that over time, many people can be conditioned to accept it. The UK is an example of incremental control with lasting impact. The United Kingdom's move toward near total handgun prohibition began in the late 20th century, culminating in extensive bans following the 1996 Dunblane tragedy. While the justification was public safety, the effects extended far beyond firearm ownership. Today, the UK public has one of the most limited sets of firearm rights among Western democracies, and many citizens feel that decisions about personal protection are no longer theirs to make. The pattern is clear. Once the government has leverage to violate one fundamental right, it becomes easier for it to expand its authority into others. This isn't about whether British citizens are safe or unsafe. It's about whether they retain the sovereign right to choose. And many no longer do. Canada is a case study in accelerating restrictions. Canada's firearm landscape has changed dramatically over the past several decades, from the Firearms Act in 1995 to the 2020 Order in Council banning numerous so-called assault-style firearms. The trajectory of increasing restrictions while decreasing individual authority has been consistent. Many Canadians who once lawfully owned certain rifles or handguns found themselves becoming criminals almost overnight. Now, whether you agree with these policies or not, the impact is unmistakable. The government has the power to reshape fundamental rights swiftly and unilaterally, and citizens are limited to simply complying. Rights constrained by government decree are rights dependent on government permission. In other words, rights have been turned into privileges. Now, the difference between other countries and America is the Second Amendment. It has created a guardrail for liberty. Now, this is where the United States stands apart. The founders, having lived under a government that claimed near total authority, designed the Bill of Rights not as a suggestion, but as a permanent shield against government overreach. Second Amendment is not merely about owning firearms. It's a constitutional guarantee that recognizes the authority lies with the people, not the state. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, this unmistakable language reflects a philosophy. People who are able to defend themselves individually and collectively are destined to remain free. Unfortunately, there are many American citizens who have squandered their right to freedom for free handouts and political popularity, power, or out of anger toward those who have achieved more than they have. There is an almost irrational, angry thought process that lurks among the political left, which guides them to the point of denouncing not only their freedom, but the freedom of their fellow citizens. Now, this mindset is one that's been conditioned over generations. On the bright side, there are far more Americans who embrace the Constitution and Bill of Rights. Real Americans understand the importance of the Second Amendment and how it relates to all other rights recognized by our founding fathers. Unlike the UK and Canada, where rights can be altered by parliamentary vote or executive order, the United States embeds the right to bear arms into the highest law of the land. That means the government does not grant the right, it recognizes it. And the right does not depend on political trends or party leadership. Citizens retain power over their own self-defense, security, and autonomy. Now, this matters now more than ever because when you lose the ability to protect yourself, you lose the ability to protect your other rights. Freedom of speech, privacy, and property rights all rely on a broader ecosystem of personal sovereignty. The Second Amendment acts as a safeguard for all of them. History shows us that once a right is taken slowly, temporarily, or for safety, it rarely comes back. Americans have the benefit of observing other nations' paths and choosing a different one. Stand for your rights, stay informed, stay empowered. The debate over firearms is about far more than sporting, collecting, or even self-defense. It's about who ultimately holds power in a free society. The examples of the UK and Canada remind us that rights can fade quietly, gradually, and permanently if we let them. But the American Constitution offers another model. It's one which the people retain the tools, responsibility, and authority to preserve their own liberty. Second Amendment is the promise that freedom in America belongs to the people. Protect that promise. Know your rights. Stand for the Constitution. I'm Dan Was. The Second Amendment is not a privilege. It's your right.